If you or a loved one are over the age of 65, the next time you check into a hospital, you might be handed a clipboard and asked to sign a few routine forms. Do not sign anything until you watch this video. Hospitals across the United States are quietly using legal loopholes to turn ordinary senior admissions into massive financial traps, costing you thousands of dollars out of pocket or worse, denying you rehab care when you need it most. Today, we are breaking down the 5 dangerous hospital traps seniors fall into every single day and the exact words you need to say to protect your health and your retirement savings. And the pattern I keep seeing in my work with adults over 60 is troubling, not because hospitals are full of bad doctors, but because the system around those doctors is quietly set up in ways that cost seniors money and sometimes cost them their recovery. These 5 traps I'm about to walk you through are real. They happen every single day across this country. And the people they happen to are not careless people, and they are people who simply did not know the right questions to ask. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what to say. Trap number 5. And I want to start here because this one surprises people the most. A senior carefully picks a hospital, does their homework, calls their Medicare Advantage plan, confirms the hospital is in network, feels good about it. Then 3 weeks later, an envelope arrives in the mail with a bill for $1,400 from a doctor they have never heard of. The hospital was in network, but the anesthesiologist who walked into the room during their procedure, or the radiologist who read their scan, or the ER physician who saw them on intake, that specific doctor was not. They were contracted separately, and because they were out of network, the bill is the patient's problem. This is called the out-of-network specialist surprise, and it has been happening to seniors on Medicare Advantage and commercial insurance plans for years. The hospital is covered, the building is covered. But the doctors who work inside that building may each have their own separate network agreements, and nobody tells you that at intake. Now, here is what changed. There is a federal law called the No Surprises Act. It was passed specifically to protect patients from this exact situation, and it gives you a right that almost nobody uses because almost nobody knows to ask for it. The moment you arrive at any hospital, before any procedure, before any specialist sees you, you have the right to say these words to the staff or the billing department. I only consent to treatment by in-network providers under the No Surprises Act. Write those words down. Put them in your phone right now. That one sentence puts the hospital on legal notice. If they bring in an out-of-network specialist after you've said that, the financial responsibility shifts back to them, not you. I want to ask you something here, and I genuinely want to hear your answer in the comments. And because someone else watching this right now is in this exact situation and hasn't found the words for it yet. Have you or someone in your family ever received a medical bill weeks after a hospital visit that made absolutely no sense? A charge from a doctor you don't even remember seeing? Tell me what happened and when it started. Your answer may help someone else watching this figure out what hit them. Now, trap number 4. And this one does not involve paperwork at all. It involves a phone call and a rushed conversation when you are at your most vulnerable. Hospitals are businesses. They have financial pressures from insurance companies to move patients out of beds as quickly as possible. What that sometimes looks like on the ground is a discharge that happens before a senior is actually ready. A doctor comes in and says the words, "You're doing well enough to go home." And because it's a doctor saying it, most people nod, get dressed, and go. 3 days later, they fall getting out of the shower, or their wound isn't healing. Or they end up back in the emergency room, which costs 5 times more than if they had simply stayed those extra days. This is sometimes called rehab dumping. And the cruelty of it is that Medicare patients have a legal right to appeal a discharge they believe is premature. That right exists right now. Most seniors have never been told about it. Here's how it works. If a hospital tells you it's time to go home and you do not feel ready, or your family does not feel you are ready, you can request an expedited appeal through your local quality improvement organization, also called a QIO. You can find yours at medicare.gov. Once you file that appeal, the hospital cannot legally discharge you while the review is being processed. You are protected. The key is knowing to ask. The words you say to your care team are simple. I don't feel medically ready for discharge, and I am requesting an expedited appeal through the QIO. Margaret, 71, a retired school librarian from Columbus, Ohio. She had a hip replacement, and on day 2, the physical therapist came in, did a short evaluation, and by that afternoon, her doctor was suggesting she go home the next morning. Her daughter, who had watched this type of video, asked the nurse, "Can we speak with the case manager about requesting a QIO appeal?" The tone in the room changed immediately. The discharge was delayed. Margaret spent 2 more days in the hospital completing her physical therapy baseline. When she got home, she said, "I would have fallen the first night. I know I would have." Now let's go to trap number 3, and this one starts before you ever leave home. When a senior is admitted to a hospital, the facility has its own internal pharmacy, and that pharmacy runs on something called a formulary, a specific approved list of medications they stock and dispense. The maintenance medications that have been carefully calibrated for a senior over months or years, blood pressure medication, heart medication, thyroid medication, may not be on that formulary. So the hospital substitutes a different brand, a different generic, a different version, and they do it without always telling the patient, sometimes without telling the admitting doctor clearly enough. For adults over 60, a sudden medication switch is not a minor inconvenience. The cardiovascular system in particular is sensitive to these changes in ways that can produce real adverse effects: dizziness, blood pressure swings, irregular rhythm. And on top of the health risk, the hospital pharmacy charges premium rates for those substituted drugs. So the patient pays more for something that may not be the right thing. The protection here is simple, and you can prepare for it before you ever need it. Keep an updated written list of every medication you take and the exact brand name, the exact dosage, the exact timing. Carry it with you. And when you or a family member is admitted, hand that list to the admitting doctor and say clearly, "Do not substitute or alter any of my maintenance medications without an explicit clinical review and my written consent." Those words put the responsibility where it belongs, on the clinical team to flag any substitution to you before it happens, not after. This is the halfway point of what I want to share with you today. And if you've stayed this far, I want to make sure you don't stop here. Because trap number 2 is the one that financially blindsides more seniors than any other item on this list. And most people sign away their protection for it in the first 10 minutes of being in the building, when they are scared, in pain, and handed a clipboard. Trap number 2, the blanket financial responsibility form. Walk into any hospital in America for an admission, and within minutes someone hands you a stack of forms. Consent forms, privacy forms, insurance authorization, and buried somewhere in that stack, and sometimes on its own page, sometimes folded into a longer document, is a clause that says you assume all financial responsibility for services not covered by insurance. Most people sign it without reading it. They are not in a position to read carefully. They are worried. They are in pain. Someone is waiting for them to hand the clipboard back, so they sign. What that signature can do is give the hospital the legal right to bypass standard insurance negotiations and bill you directly at inflated full rates for anything Medicare or your insurance does not cover in full. This is called balance billing, and it can mean thousands of dollars in charges that your insurance company would have negotiated down to a fraction of that amount, except you already signed away that protection. Here's what you do instead. Before you sign any financial agreement, write this exact phrase next to your signature, not instead of signing, but right next to it. Signing only for authorized insurance benefits, not personal financial liability for uncovered balance billing. You can write it in pen. You can do it in front of the intake person. It is legal. It documents your intent, and it protects you from having that signature used against you later. If anyone in your life is over 60 and has an upcoming procedure, a spouse, a sibling, an adult child managing a parent's care, take a photo of that sentence right now and send it to them. They will thank you for it. And now trap number 1. The one I said at the very beginning of this video changed everything for a 68-year-old who had no idea it was happening to him. 3 out of every 10 Medicare patients admitted to a hospital each year are placed under something called observation status. That number comes from CMS data, and it represents hundreds of thousands of seniors annually. Under observation status, a patient is technically classified as an outpatient, even while lying in a hospital bed, receiving specialist care, eating hospital meals, and being monitored around the clock. And Medicare Part A, which covers skilled nursing facility and rehabilitation care after a hospital stay, only applies after a formal inpatient admission of at least 3 consecutive days. Observation status does not count toward that 3-day minimum, not 1 hour of it, which means a senior can spend 4 nights in a hospital, leave, need rehabilitation at a skilled nursing facility, and receive a bill for the entire stay out of pocket, tens of thousands of dollars. Because on paper, Medicare never saw them as admitted. Robert, 68, a retired electrician from Tucson, Arizona. He came in with chest pain and fluid around his lungs. He was in the hospital for 4 nights. He had a bed, a care team, a specialist. He thought he was admitted. When he was discharged and his wife called about rehab coverage, they were told he had been under observation status the entire time and that Medicare Part A did not apply. The rehabilitation bill came to over $22,000. When I sat with Robert, he said, "Nobody said those words to me once. Not once. If someone had just told me, I would have asked them to change it. Here is what he should have been told, and what you now know to say. The moment you or a family member is placed in a hospital bed, ask the attending physician or the case manager directly, 'Am I admitted as an inpatient or am I under observation status?' If the answer is observation status, say this, 'I am requesting that my status be reviewed for formal inpatient admission based on medical necessity.' That request is documented. The care team must respond to it. In many cases, when a patient or family member explicitly asks, the status is reviewed and changed. The law also requires hospitals to notify Medicare patients of their observation status in writing. It is called the Moon Notice, the Medicare Outpatient Observation Notice. If you have not been handed that notice within 36 hours of arriving, ask for it by name. Have I received my Moon Notice? Those 5 words tell the hospital you know your rights. Now here is what I want you to do in the next hour before you go to bed tonight, before this information fades the way things do when you have not written them down. Take out a piece of paper or open the Notes app on your phone. Write down these 5 phrases. Am I admitted as an inpatient or under observation status? I request my status be reviewed for inpatient admission based on medical necessity. I only consent to treatment by in-network providers under the No Surprises Act. Do not substitute my maintenance medications without clinical review and my consent. And signing only for authorized insurance benefits, not personal financial liability for balance billing. 5 sentences. That is your hospital protection plan. Keep it somewhere you can find it fast. Commit to this for the next 30 days. Every doctor's appointment, every specialist visit, every time you or someone you love walks into any medical facility, have that list with you. Review it before you go in. In 30 days, you will have built the habit. You will not need to think about it. It will just be something you do. And the people who build that habit are the ones who leave hospitals with their retirement savings intact and their recovery protected. The next video I want you to watch covers something that follows directly from what we talked about today, what happens after the hospital, when you are sent to a rehabilitation or skilled nursing facility, and the financial and medical traps that are waiting for you there. If you do not know those, everything we covered today only protects half the journey. Hit subscribe so that video finds you when it goes up. It will matter.